tall guy. Like you said, my wife is Filipino. I grew up around a lot of Filipinos, so I was a tall guy, but not here. Is that a thing? Maybe. So good stuff. Well, good to see everybody. How are you guys?
Very
good.
good.
Awesome. Well, glad you're here. Glad we're able to provide some good information. I love that Bryce shared that story. It says on the screen we're going to go over some good concepts and some good information, and it's definitely designed to be, and we'll be okay today. If you don't have a notebook, that's not a problem, but we may need you to use your phone today a little bit to take some notes or do some little activities. Is that okay today? Just do a little activities. You can use the notes in your phone. But since this slide's here, it says families are not financially protected. I'll give you a little bit of my background. I've been in the financial space now for 12 years. Prior to that, I did almost 18 years in retail management. Anyone ever go to the mall still? The mall's not, right? It's kind of not a thing anymore, right? They got Amazon and all of that. Fortunately, I saw someone introduced me to the industry and said, you understand that malls eventually are not going to be a thing, right? Like there's going to be a time when people don't shop in stores, and you probably should look at some other careers. I'm glad that they did that to me, to be honest. And because I spent most of my career helping people buy a lot of things they necessarily didn't need, and spent a lot of time helping people get into credit card debt, right? And opening cards and giving people discounts for purchases and all that. I did that again for almost 20 years, and it's kind of ironic that I transitioned into an industry that actually, the cool stuff, right? The cool mics. But yeah, so I basically transitioned from my years of retail management and helping people learn how to, again, buy a lot of things maybe they didn't need, or just, we help them understand they need, and to a place now where they actually, where we now are putting people in a whole different position and building these financial houses as we call them. And so that's been a much better career. I'm glad that my kids actually laugh because they see pictures when I used to work in retail and stuff, but they actually have never seen me actually really have a regular job, right? I've been an independent agent for as long as I can remember. They can remember, and so it's pretty cool to see that our family's been able to do that. One of the stories I'll share personally, and then I've got a couple other stories that I'll share with this, is so the reason I got into the industry, when I got introduced a little over 12 years ago, I have to go back another 10 years prior. My dad had a massive heart attack 1 week before my wedding. And so when me and Lorelai got married, my dad was at our shower. Again, I'm from Northern California. He was at our wedding shower. He came, my mom stayed, he went back to San Diego, and that was the last time I ever saw him. What happened was, my dad, and here's what you guys can know about my dad. My dad was a boxer in the Navy. He was a 5'2" Italian Sicilian, right? Very healthy from the outside, physically active, all of those things. But he took on a case that he shouldn't have. Long story short, anyone know someone in the Merchant Marines? Like the Merchant Marines? So he used to travel a lot, and back then in 2005, there was something called the anthrax shot back then, and he refused to take it for a lot of reasons, and he took on a court case he shouldn't have taken. He ended up incurring about $250,000 of court fees that he ended up doing there. And so think about this, 5'2" Italian guy taking on $250,000 of debt he shouldn't have been taking on, emptied out his life savings, doing all of that, and never told his family about it. So he's carrying all this financial stress, goes out for a run one afternoon a week before our wedding, and literally passes out, has a heart attack in the middle of a park, and falls flat on his face, and that was that. And my brother got that call, and then he gave me that call, and I had to deliver that news to my mom. What I didn't know, what fast forward through the situation is, we didn't know a financial house was really important, right? And we found out our house kind of looked like the one Bryce showed. We had some things in place, but they were like out of place. Does that make sense? So we had things, and so I quickly learned, and I was very angry for a while, of like, how did this happen, right? Like, how did our house get so in disarray just because of one situation, right? That one death literally flipped everything upside down, caused a lot of financial stress and turmoil for my mom. My mom never recovered mentally from it and never slept for the next decade and ended up developing dementia and the doctor said it was because she never slept well because of all the financial stress that carried onto her. She just didn't know how to process it out and ended up passing away from that as well. So the reason I share all that was interesting is when I got introduced to the information, just like some of you are today, and maybe some of you already had it, when I first saw it, I was actually more angry than excited. Because all I could think about when I saw some of the information I saw is that, wow, like no one ever shared this with our family. No one ever brought this to us. And so the reason I get really excited to share it because I get to share this information every day and twice on Sundays and such, but is that what I find out is that everybody I talk to really has never had this conversation, right? No one's really had that piece about understanding how things work. So that's why I'm here, and I'm excited about it. I love what we do, but mainly for what we'll be able to share today is for a lot of the pieces that we'll talk about. So families are not properly protected. Jay, next slide. So these are just some of the statistics that are out there, but think about some of this, and when we're talking about some of these statistics, think about you, think about your own immediate family, think about your communities when we're looking at this. But look at this, 1 in 3 families do not have enough life insurance, and we'll talk about what that means to have enough. 40% of policyholders wish they had purchased at a younger age, right? That's always a very common thing. One of the biggest misconceptions is how much it actually costs, right? You can get a way more coverage than you think. And then financial risk, if the primary income earner passes, 44% feel the impact within 6 months, 28%, think about that, feel it within 30 days, right? So that's why this whole level we're talking about is this income protection. I know some people call it life insurance, but it's really income protection in its more applicable state. And then if the primary earner passes, right, you feel all those same statistics repeat over. Next slide, Jay. The other part that comes in, 70% of people over the age of 65 are going to need some form of long-term care. Who knows what long-term care is? What is long-term care? What's long-term care? Skilled nursing facility. Memory care, things like that. Do you have to be over 65 to have long-term care?
No, it could also be care in the home.
It could be care in the home?
As long as you don't have, I forget the number, like however many acts of daily living that you can't do.
Yeah.
You can go in the home or out.
Yeah. It's people typically connected to someone being older, but it can happen when you're younger, right? If you get, I'm sorry, you break your back, something like that, where you actually need some kind of care. And so there's lots of it. And who will need it? Well, they say 30% of the population below 65, and then there's 70% over, or the age of over 65. In 2020, that was 12 million people, but it's a huge, huge opportunity for us to be, again, aware of the future, right? Next slide, Jay. So other parts is, we talk about long-term care, and I have some stories to go along with this. 90% of life insurance, anyone in the room have life insurance? Like, just raise your hand if you have just life insurance in general, right? So what we know statistically, though, if you have life insurance, so you understand of protecting yourself and if you pass away, but here's something to understand is, what happens if you get sick too soon is the big question, right? Because these are and when we talk about sick, we're not talking about like getting a cold or a flu or allergy attack. We're talking about some serious illnesses. So what if, because they say 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with some form of cancer in their lifetime. Who knows someone who's gotten cancer? Like, right, everyone's hand goes up, right? Somebody knows. It's not too far, unfortunately, to go and realize that every 40 seconds, someone in the US has a heart attack. My brother had one 6 years ago. There are 795,000 stroke victims each year. And then again, they reinforce the statistics, 70% of people over 65 will have some kind of need of a living benefit or a long-term care. So perfect. So this is what the living benefits look like when it comes into life insurance. So these are type of how it works. So because we wouldn't present all the statistics if there wasn't a solution that can go along with it. So look at this, is life insurance can actually come with living benefits, or also known as accelerated benefits. And what it can help take care of are the big things: a critical illness, a chronic illness, or a terminal illness, right? And of course it also has a death benefit. So that's all connected together, right, inside of it. And what most people don't realize, well, those sound really good, they're probably really expensive. Actually, the way that things have worked now, and because of technology and underwriting and all the mortality tables and such, they can actually get a lot of this for very similar costs. I share this story all the time. My State Farm agent actually gets his life insurance through us, right? And the reason I say that, I share that, and I tell him I share that story all the time, because we get our home insurance, our off insurance, and all that through him, but he gets his life insurance because their insurance actually doesn't have living benefits. And for the other parts is, we're still cheaper, even with the living benefits, than what he gets with through his own company. So just things to think about. Jay, next slide. So I'm going to share a couple of stories, because these are big ones. These stories have actually have happened at different times of my career. So this is my friend Jason. So Jason was a marketing director. He was an agent and junior broker in our firm back when I was, again, this is like 2017. But this diagnosis happened somewhere around 2015. So what happened to Jason was, he actually, about a year into his career into the financial industry, ended up getting stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Right, he was 34 years old. And imagine, he got a letter, and we saw the letter, that he had 11 months, he was given 11 months to live. Right, so can you imagine receiving, or someone, a loved one you know, getting a letter saying they have 12 months to live, 11 months to live. And so fortunately, he went through his financial house when we met with him, and we were able to put a bunch of things together for him, a couple things, and because of his ailment, the company actually approved him. He had 2 policies. He actually had a tax-free retirement, which we'll learn about a little more in a minute, and he also had a term policy with living benefits. He had a double policy. He had 2 different policies. And when he got sick, and obviously they filed the claim, they ended up he had about $750,000 of coverage, of total coverage. And does that sound like a lot for a 34-year-old? Like $750,000? Like, kind of sounds a lot. I'll show you in a minute how we actually came up with that number. It wasn't by accident. We actually have a formula, and I'll tell you how powerful that is. But he ended up getting over $606,000 tax-free lump sum to take care of his health, obviously. He got to pay off all the debt in his household. He was living with his sister. He bought his sister out of her job for 2 years to help take care of him, right? And then he ended up putting a down payment on a new home, so he actually had a space for himself because he was sharing like a room with others. And then because of all that happening and all the financial stress doing, he actually survived. He actually went into full remission. After this check kicked in, 2 years later, he went into full remission, was cancer-free, got married. Amen.
Come on.
Right? So give a round of applause for that. Right? But I want you to kind of think about, because I can promise you this, as a 34-year-old having $750,000 of coverage, like, sounded like a lot. You know what the family all said? We wish we applied for more. In my career, I was doing writing down my list. In my career of 12 years, I've done 16 benefit claims, right? And the majority of them are living benefit claims. People who've gotten sick too soon, right? So I know this stuff works at a very dramatic level. Jay, next slide. So this just happened. What's the date? How long ago was that? About a week ago. Wow, so this is like hot off the press. And this is actually a copy of the letter. I obviously keeping all the details separate, but I want you to think about this scenario. Sat with a family, did their financial house 5 years ago. The wife in this story was 45 and the husband was about 40, I think he's 44 at the time, did their financial house. They got the best ratings possible. What does that mean? You get the best rating possible, what does that mean medically? Healthy. Healthy. Like generally, they do the blood work, they check your medical history, they check everything about you. Got the best rating. That's February. I got a call in December from the husband telling me that his wife just got diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And they're not sure how long she's gonna live. They're actually debating on it. Well, when you get a call like that as an agent, the first thing we could do is obviously reinforce and make sure everything's in order, right? And make sure they've been making their payments. Unfortunately, everything was. We filed the claim. It took our administrative team, our operations team, 2 months of calling. You think that this stuff would go through very quickly. It doesn't. It's lots of a process, if you can imagine. You actually got to get a doctor's letter from every doctor that you've seen through that process, or through your process. And look at this, how much insurance? So she actually had how much insurance did she have?
$1 million.
It was $1 million policy. So anyone I have $1 million. At the time, it made about sense at the time of their own financial house. They have some other things in place. But here's what happened. It's called a critical illness. Remember I showed you that chart? Remember the chronic illness, critical illness? This was a critical illness, not thanks, Jay. So we went back to a critical illness, right? So heart attack, stroke, cancer, right? So go back to the payout, Jay. Thank you. Wow, you're good at this, Jason. You were meant to do this. So look at this. She was paying how much for her policy? $155, right? So when with the company that we were working with, a critical claim honors at how much? 90%, up to 90%. So they do all their math and algorithms, and they ended up approving her for $729,000 and some change. And that's a lump sum tax-free check, by the way. And she's obviously still alive. She's still going through treatment. She's doing all this. Do you think this might help a little bit? A lot of it. She's the main breadwinner in their house, actually. She's like the only breadwinner in their house right now, right? So I can tell you that giving that call and to helping that family do that is pretty powerful, because this is stuff, and she wants to do more. She has a lot of things. So we're happy that we're able to provide that benefit. And look what happens to the policy. There's still $100,000 left over, and they just prorate the new price. Pretty crazy, right? Pretty crazy. So if you ever want to know if this stuff works and all of that, they do very well, by the way, right? So again, this financial house conversation is always big. Jay, next slide. So the way we do it, so you can take out your phone real quick, and this is just, we have a formula we call DIME that helps like determine your insurable need, because everyone's at a different case and scenario. So I'm gonna go over Jason's story, just because I just want to make a point to this.